Hey, good morning. Welcome to Crocker and Cohn. That's Eric Crocker. I'm Grant Cohn. Been a few weeks since we linked up. I was in Colorado Springs in Mexico City. He was out in Phoenix at one of your son's basketball. What happened? Basketball tournament?
I was in Phoenix at my son's basketball game.
How'd he do?
He did cool. He turned the ball over a little too much. Has to get a little stronger. You know the tough thing with having a kid playing sports, especially like me, because I evaluate talent pretty much.
You're a professional athlete, yeah.
Training athletes and all that.
Yeah.
The first thing I look for are the things that he needs to improve on, as opposed to the things that he does well. So
that's so funny.
I think there was a lot of things that he did well. He scored, had some strong takes to the bucket, but he could get a little stronger, get that dribble down a little bit. I think the dribble's a little too high.
That's hella funny.
And some of the fundies, but he's doing good though.
When I was a kid and I asked my dad like how I played in the game, he'd be like, "You were great, sweetie." And that was my coaching point for my dad. So that's why I turned out to be a professional athlete, because he was so supportive. All right, so there's news. Jimmy Garoppolo not going to injured reserve. This is kind of surprising considering when Kyle Shanahan's been asked about this, he's like, there's like a really low outside chance that he'll come back. But John Lynch was asked about it today on the radio, and he was like, I mean, not going on IR. Sure, there's an outside chance, but it seems like they're leaving the door open. How do you interpret this?
I think the outside chance is how deep the 49ers can go in the playoffs. Because if you're saying, hey, divisional round, all of a sudden Jimmy's good, and you happen to be there, right, then, you're in a much better place. Now, I think the outside chance part is maybe if you feel like, man, it's going to be tough just to get there with a rookie quarterback, and how much is on Kyle's shoulders and making sure that he puts this young guy in the right positions to win. Because now, before the season, obviously you have expectations for the year, right? Whether it's Trey Lance or whatever, it's like, oh man, like Super Bowl's expectations. You're like, got to temper your expectations. Guy in his first year started, etc. Well, now you're here. You're one of the best teams in the NFL. You're hitting stride at the right time. You're playing extremely well. You take a huge blow losing Jimmy Garoppolo and just kind of that veteran leadership, and then you have to insert a young guy. And now, you still try to temper your expectations, but then you can't because you're in the thick of it. You're in the thick of being the best team in the NFL. So I think that's probably the dilemma that Kyle is dealing with. How far can we go? Take it one day at a time, week by week. And I think maybe if you take that approach down the line, Jimmy Garoppolo can potentially make a return. I would say this, not putting him on IR really helps because, you can put a guy on IR and then bring him back come playoff time. But they only have 2 designations available. And I think they're saving that for Elijah Mitchell and Javon Kinlaw. So I think that's probably even the bigger reason as to why Jimmy won't be going on IR.
Yes. Tom Pelissero also came out this morning and said if he does come back, Jimmy Garoppolo, he could suit up as the backup. But again, this is all fluid. It could change. It seems to me like the big outcome here is that now there's more pressure on Kyle. Let me tell you what I mean. When Jimmy goes down and they just go with Brock and Josh Johnson, they're basically like, look, this is what we had to do. These guys know our offense. This is the only move we can do. We like Brock. But, I mean, if we don't win the Super Bowl, you can't necessarily hold it against us. There was no choice in the matter. But now it's like, no, there's a choice. At a certain point, Kyle's going to have to make a decision, probably at a playoff game, who gives me a better chance to win? Jimmy coming off a 2-month layoff or Brock Purdy? And I don't know. That's a choice he has to make. I don't know if we can make the right choice, and we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. But still, that puts a lot of pressure on Kyle. If Jimmy Garoppolo's standing there healthy on the sideline and he goes with Brock and they get blown out in the playoffs, he has to answer for that. So that's interesting.
I'll say that regardless, I feel like the players in the locker room will respect the decision if he was to go back to Jimmy Garoppolo because they love Jimmy. So, it is not a Trey Lance situation, right, where Jimmy's playing bad and then, we're going to insert Trey Lance and he's the young guy who doesn't have any equity built up on his roster. It's like, nah, if Brock Purdy's doing cool and, okay, you're there, getting Jimmy Garoppolo to a lot of the players will probably be a boost because of how they view him. So I don't think it would as far as the pressure of that situation, if it pertains itself, I don't think it'd be an issue amongst the guys in the locker room.
That's true. It definitely seemed like it was the popular move. Like Brandon Ayuk came out and said they're rocking with Brock Purdy, and it seemed like Kyle Shanahan did what the players want. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right move. And I think another thing that puts pressure on Kyle is what Baker Mayfield did last night. Like the Niners made a big deal about, we're not even interested. He couldn't possibly learn our offense. Plus, we got Brock. And the Rams are like, so they never would have got Baker Mayfield because the Rams were ahead of him, but still they didn't even put in a claim. And they were real outward about not wanting him. So he goes in, 2 days of work, plays well, wins. And it's like, ugh, you didn't want him? You didn't even give him a chance, and you're riding with these two guys because they know your system. Did you really go out and find the best quarterbacks possible because you have a Super Bowl window right now? And I feel like the Niners are just kind of setting themselves up for like, hey, man, we lost the second round of the playoffs, but what do you want from us? I mean, Jimmy got hurt. Okay, well, you didn't want Baker. You didn't call Drew Brees. You didn't, uncover every stone. You just went with the guys who knew you, and you knew. So I didn't know. Anyway, I think pressure's mounting on Kyle. It's better work because they didn't really exactly do an exhaustive search for a quarterback.
I thought it was an interesting move to at all, we're not even going to entertain, or maybe they entertained it and they had those conversations in-house.
We don't know.
But not putting in the claim, even though you weren't going to get them, but not even that being like, all right, we're going to be more aggressive in this. Right. Maybe they just really like Brock so much. And to me, it's not even so much about Brock. It's about what's behind Brock, right? Because so far what we've seen is 49er quarterbacks get injured. And that's been the case the whole time. Even if you go back to how did Jimmy Garoppolo get in the game against Seattle late in that game in 2017? It was an injury to CJ Beathard.
Correct.
The next year, how did
Jimmy might never have played that year if CJ hadn't gotten hurt. I don't think Kyle wanted to play him, so keep going.
The next year, how did Nick Mullins play? Oh, there was an injury to CJ Beathard. Well, how was CJ Beathard playing? There was an injury to Jimmy Garoppolo. So they have to deal with a lot of injuries really throughout this tenure. And to say, all right, we like Brock, that's awesome. I thought Brock played extremely well. Coming off the bench, no reps during the week. There were some weird moments. There's going to be the weird moments, right? Like you'd expect that, not having the timing down, no game plan for you, etc. But considering the circumstances, I thought he played awesome, right? Now, okay, you can like that. That's cool. But what if he goes down? And I think you just, with the luck or bad luck that you've had at the quarterback position, I think you have to really take that into consideration. And you also have to take into consideration, what if Brock might not be good? Because we've seen that too, right? I just talked about Nick Mullins. How did he get his first start? Well, CJ Beathard's going down. What had happened? Nick Mullins threw for 3 touchdowns, looked amazing, lit up the Raiders, and then lost the next 4 or 5 games or whatever it was. So
it might have been the best statistical debut ever. It was really great. Yeah.
We've seen that. So I understand the optimism with Brock Purdy from the fan base and from the organization, but I would have liked to see more of if you have an opportunity, which they clearly, now we know they didn't, but they didn't put in the claim, to get a guy like Baker Mayfield, who people, I guess they talk about him like he's kind of this village idiot and he's just this terrible quarterback. But, I always look at context. Yeah. When you look at the context of Baker Mayfield in these situations, he came in for an injured Tyrod Taylor, looked awesome, finished his rookie year strong. I want to say he might have even broke Peyton Manning's touchdown record for a rookie quarterback. A couple years later, after they fired Kitchens, you see him in the playoffs. He's leading his team to the playoffs, winning a playoff game, right? So you have that as well. And, then after that, you had the weird kind of dynamic with Odell Beckham and everything that happened there. And then last year he played with a torn rotator cuff, and everybody held that against him. And then they're like, we kind of like this guy, Deshaun Watson, so we're just going to get rid of you. So there have been a lot of different things that put him in the scenario that he's in now. But he's not this terrible quarterback that everybody makes him out to be. And I think last night, going in 2 days worth of practice or whatever, but just seeing the ball, some of the balls that are popping out of his hands, there were some bad throws. I think a lot of it had to do with timing, but you saw a lot of the good that he brings to the table. And to, at the very least, not want that, even on your bench. That was the part to me that was a little interesting.
Agree. And the Niners came out and made it real clear, we think Brock is better for us than Baker. I think another thing is they didn't want to put in the claim for Baker, not get him, and have, what does that look like? Does it mean that we don't believe in Brock? But still, it's pretty clear. Who cares?
That's going to be, Kyle, we understand.
Who cares?
Look at this situation, Kyle. We will understand if you go out and try to bring in a guy like Baker Mayfield. And everybody talks about locker room, this locker room, they're tight. Well, he looked like he gelled with that damn Rams locker room pretty good last night after that win. So,
absolutely. So to me, this is it's ratcheting up the pressure on Kyle. He chose not to look for another quarterback. He chose to, he's not stuck with Brock. He likes Brock. The team likes Brock. They chose to ride with Brock. They've said it themselves. And eventually, they're going to have Jimmy Garoppolo backing him up. So it seems to me, no excuses. This is what you want.
Jimmy's healthy. He's on the field.
No excuses. Win the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear that, oh, we had Brock Purdy. You know, it was a valiant effort. Good story. No. This is your choice. This is what you want. This is what you think is best for the team. Win the Super Bowl. Otherwise, I'm putting you back on the hot seat. And that's the real thing. Corey Soto says, has anyone heard anything about Kinlaw? It's assumed one of the 2 IR spots is for him, but it's weird to not have heard any reports about his progress. I haven't heard anything. I have a theory. If they're trying to get, a few weeks out of him this season, probably best to wait for the playoffs. I'm just saying. Maybe he'll make an appearance in the playoffs. What do you think?
He has
or
a bad
not
knee. And
his bad knee.
Again, I don't want him to come in here. Kinlaw, love you.
Sorry,
a lot of talent, a lot of ability. But
nothing personal.
You spoke during the draft about his knee.
Yeah.
And what that was. And I've talked to people, and they're like, man, it might be both knees. And the issues that he have, they're just not going away. So he can either manage or, figure out how to manage to play with some of the things he's going through with his knees, or it's just not really going to be something that improves, and he won't play. I don't know exactly. We'll find out. But right now, if you look at really since he's been in the NFL, kind of things he's been going through with it, some of the surgery he's got to try to repair it, it doesn't look like an ideal situation for really him or the team.
No, it seems like they're trying to salvage it, but I'm no expert. It just seems like knees generally don't get better. That's the crappy thing about the whole situation. Sucks. Sorry, Corey. Got you. Did we get him? We got him. El Jefe says, "Why is Lance getting so much shade from the media?" Well, let's talk about it, because it seems like he gets shade from his own locker room, and it's implied. They don't just come out and say it, but like George Kittle, for example. George Kittle is very detailed in his analysis of all of his teammates, and if you ask him to break down a quarterback, he will do so in depth. And he's never really had very much to say about Trey Lance. Calls him a kid, says he's got promise, says like the obvious stuff about his potential and how he could become Josh Allen, but never really says specific stuff about what he likes about him now. Cut to yesterday, George Kittle asked about Brock Purdy, and he went on and on and on. If you didn't see it, real quick, things he pointed out. He loves Brock Purdy's experience, started 60 games in college. Well, that's a stark contrast to Trey Lance, who started 1 year. He loves that Brock Purdy both won and lost big games in college because it means he faced adversity and had to pick himself up. Trey Lance never lost in college, so that's something he didn't. That's another stark contrast between him and Purdy. Finally, what he liked about Purdy is the way that he commanded the huddle right away. Well, that's something Trey Lance even talked about. He had to learn how to do. He had to project his voice. He's freaking 19 when he got drafted by this team. So to me, those are three big things where Kittle's not coming out and saying it, but he's drawing a comparison between Purdy and Lance. And the comparison, once again, makes Purdy look good and Lance not so good. I don't know. Am I reading too much into this? What do you think?
Nah, you can see some of that, and even some of the things that Kyle Shanahan has said about Brock Purdy to the media. I think this kind of goes back to, and again, I'm drawing these parallels just to kind of bring a little context, but you specifically talked a whole lot about the mental makeup of Nick Mullins, right? And everybody talked so much about his preparation and what he did, and even when he wasn't playing, it's like he's going through all the plays in his head, and he understood everything, and that is awesome. And I think you could see that, especially with a guy like Brock Purdy who has played a lot of football. Trey Lance can learn a lot from him. It was still like very youthful in Trey Lance's really experience just playing football, just overall, playing the quarterback position. And when you are – Trey Lance is younger than Brock Purdy.
That's correct.
Like,
That's
he's
correct.
younger than Purdy, who's a rookie.
Yeah.
And when you look at Purdy and the things that he's going through, I think all those things are very pivotal. Think about Bill Parcells. And he had like this kind of quarterback commandment type thing.
That's true.
It's like, hey, if I'm drafting the quarterback, he's got to be
30
in college
starts.
a certain amount of years. He's got to have a certain amount of throws. He's got to have
wins,
all these things, right?
Certain amount of wins, certain amount of starts. You have to graduate. Have to graduate. So, I mean, Trey Lance didn't fulfill any of those. Purdy fulfills all of them.
Right. So, Trey Lance, there's still a ways to go in those type of things. The things that you just learned from starting 4 years at Iowa State. Yeah. Right? Just how to just truly command this time. Because think about when Trey Lance is at North Dakota State. He's still the young guy. He's a freshman.
Yeah. That's true.
Like you're still the young guy trying to command the huddle of guys that are seniors. So
that's right.
Brock Purdy, throughout the years, probably when he started as a freshman, maybe he wasn't that boisterous guy. Then sophomore year, he starts to get it. Then junior year, it's like, well, I'm the team captain. Then senior year, like now I've been through everything, and I'm the guy everybody looks to. And then you take that because you learned that to the NFL. And I think that's an excellent trait to have. And those are things that Trey Lance has to learn. Now, what we can't get mixed up is under no circumstances how do I word this? I told myself I'm not going to be as I usually try to watch what I say a lot of times. Yeah. But I'm going to kind of let loose a little bit.
Don't hold back. Go ahead, dude.
They are not Trey Lance. Whether it's Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo. Like the things that Trey Lance can do, the things that Trey Lance brings to an offense. Like they can't do that. It's just, all right, Trey, that's great that you do these things, but now you have to learn this part of being a professional. And Brock Purdy is better at those things right now than you are. Yeah. But the thing and how I look at it,
but they're learnable.
Down the line,
they're learnable.
Talking about 2 years down the line when Trey Lance has more opportunity and he's learned those things and he's not hurt, right? And that's sex too. Well, there is no comparison between him and Brock Purdy. But those are things that you learn from playing, from experience. And Trey Lance doesn't have that for different reasons. COVID, that's part of it. Him being hurt, that's part of it. Like being unlucky, all those things. But over time, I mean, he'll get that. So that is awesome that they talk glowingly about Purdy like that, especially this year when you're not going to see Trey Lance the rest of this year and you got to depend on Brock Purdy. I hope he's all those things because you're going to need that for the 49ers to be able to win. And I think he showed a lot of that against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I feel like, Jimmy Garoppolo supporters have now jumped over to the Brock Purdy bandwagon, and they're a very similar style of quarterback. Well, I would call them dinkers and dunkers. They dink and they dunk. And I think some people feel like that's the superior style of football. I prefer what Trey Lance brings. I like the fact that he can do all the things that are physically difficult. He can get the ball down the field. He can move. And I feel like he can learn the rest. But Jimmy Garoppolo and now Brock Purdy supporters only judge Trey on the Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo spectrum. Like, oh, he can't throw a slant as well as Brock. Well, he sucks. He can't throw a screen pass as well as Brock. Well, he sucks. Like, those are the most important things a quarterback has to do. I disagree with that entirely. I mean, show me a quarterback who's going to win a Super Bowl dinking and dunking. I don't care.
Maybe, right? I mean, Tom Brady, he wasn't always airing it out. But I will say this. If you have any reservations about Trey Lance, I'm not going to – Trey Lance is hurt. He's not going to play. But I would say go watch my guy Jesse on Last Second Sports just put out a video. It's about 11 minutes long. And all the things that people are saying Trey Lance can't do. And he does. Shows all these throws. And it's like, well, Trey Lance doesn't do this. Well, you watch that. And now the people that want to push back on Trey, they're not going to want to watch that. Because you're going to see, like, this is the total package. We just can we get more of it from Trey? And please stay healthy, bro. So, but aside from that, I see Brad Johnson. You talked about dinking and dunking. And I think that's kind of aside from Brady, it's you typically need a little bit more. And I don't think Jimmy's really a dinker and dunker. I don't think so. I think he throws short passes within the context of the offense. So Kyle, now he doesn't have aggressive eyes, and we understand that. He's not really looking to push the ball down the field a whole lot. But all right, slants, digs, and breaking routes, I think he does those things pretty solid, with timing and rhythm. The thing is, as far as, getting more, it's you can kind of get clumped in or lumped into even like Mullins. Mullins did those things well, right? And, what's the difference that's going to take you, over the top? And I think Jimmy Garoppolo does some of those things well.
I'm going to say one more thing about what Kittle said about Purdy. And maybe I'm projecting here, but just listening to him gush about Purdy and how he's gushed about Garoppolo and the way they play quarterback and how he's been really reserved with any comments about Trey. And a lot of people on this team, it makes me really feel, it's just a feeling that a lot of the people on this team never really wanted Trey. From the moment he was drafted, they're like, no. And they're just not into it. And I feel like it sucks for him. And I'm not saying it's because he's black. I'm not saying that. But I just can't help but notice that a young black man from the other side of the country got drafted at like 19, 20 years old and came to this team and has been pretty much freaking unwelcome the entire time from everyone, the fans to you name it. It just feels like he's had to deal with bullshit. I don't know. There's a clip going around on Twitter right now from a call-in show. I'm not going to talk about it, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Someone just basically called in and said, I just really don't like black quarterbacks. This is what it is. And it feels like there's been a lot. I'm not saying that Kittle feels that way. It just feels like That's what Trey Lance has been confronted with since he's been drafted here. A bunch of people are like, not my style. Like, ooh, really? Out here in San Francisco? That's depressing.
I think the quarterback position, a lot of people have in their head how they feel it's supposed to be played. Right. And I think there are guys that go through different things and different type of progressions in how they play the game. And, I think there are multiple ways to be able to win. And I think just the way that Trey wins might look different than some of these other guys like Purdy and Garoppolo. I would say that the way that Purdy and Garoppolo win will look different than a guy like Jalen Hurts, right? But at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts is one of the front runners for MVP, and his team only has one loss on the year. So are you telling me, I don't want the way Jalen Hurts has to play to win, even though the results are this dude is extremely difficult to stop? And I think kind of Trey Lance, as far as from an efficiency standpoint or what it looks like playing the quarterback position, fits more in that mode as opposed to what people think your traditional quarterback is supposed to look like.
It's just easy to romanticize someone like Brock Purdy for, a large percent of the population because he looks like a large percent of the population. He looks normal. You know what I'm saying? He looks normal. He looks like me. I could be like, man, I love this story. 7th round pick. Go you. Go me. Trey Lance walks up there. A lot of people are like, I can't relate to him. This is different. And I feel like, and there's so much skepticism. Oh, 4 stars? Nah, I've seen enough. He sucks. You wouldn't say that if he looked like Brock Purdy, though. Be honest. You know what I'm saying? So that's what sucks about this. And I can't help but feel like, Trey Lance is not on social media tweeting back at people, but how could you not read it, internalize it, and be saddened by it? Dude is like 21, and he comes out from freaking, the farm in the Midwest to woke Bay Area and gets greeted like this? I mean, what is this, Boston? Yeah, no offense to Boston, but what the hell is going on out here?
Let's say it's not a black and white thing, but it definitely is a play style thing. And,
sure.
And I think that's the part that.
But they're so intertwined. You know what I'm saying?
They are.
They really are.
They are very intertwined. They're like.
We'll stop.
Again, not to make it a black and white thing, but I feel like, let's say Josh Allen had a different skin color for the first couple years of his career. What would the narrative and conversation be surrounding him? Why is the narrative so different between Jimmy Garoppolo and Lamar Jackson, right? Where it was like, everybody, Jimmy Garoppolo, all he does is win, he wins. And then you have Lamar Jackson, whom all he does is win. It might look a different way, but then it's not taken in the same. And, so I think a lot of it is play style, which, like you said, can be intertwined.
Right. And, one more thing. There are a lot of people who prefer Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance, and they're not racist. I'm not, and there are a lot of people who have a lot of criticism of Trey Lance, and they're not racist. If you're watching, I want you to know I don't feel that you're a racist. I'm just saying from Trey Lance's perspective, it must feel like, damn, I'm so unwelcomed out here. And I don't even know who likes me, who doesn't, and for what reasons, but it must feel icky. I don't know. How could he enjoy this experience the last 2 years? It must feel really, really messed up. I can't even imagine, man. Can't imagine. He has to sit there and listen to his own teammates talk about Brock Purdy like that. Like, are you kidding me? Where? Hey, man, I'm still here. I thought I was the franchise quarterback. Oh, I mean, it sucks. Kind of sucks.
All I got to do, I mean, the things that I've learned in life, my stepdad, he told me this when I was like 10 years old, right? I asked him for $1 to get something from the ice cream truck. And he was like, no. I'm like, why? Like, that's not fair. He said, life's not fair. And I always remember, that just always stuck with me when he said that.
True.
Life's not fair.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why I thought it wasn't fair. But when you look at Trey Lance in this situation, maybe it's not fair. You're drafted number 3 overall. You have a lot more expectations than Brock Purdy. So for him, it's you got to block out any noise. Mm-hmm. Just go out, handle business. And if he handles his business, it'll all go away. And all the naysayers and everything like that, they'll love him. They'll change the whole tune. I always knew. They did the same thing with Hurts. Hurts had, last year, 26 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions.
Yep.
First year starting, led the team to the playoffs. This guy got benched the last week, the year before, to Nate Sudfeld. And for Nate Sudfeld. And he got benched. And last year, led his team in the playoffs, first year. And this year, they should be replacing him. Why? Because it looks different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then now you see what's happening, but people typically, they don't want to give that play style quarterback the room to improve. So,
Philly does, though. Philly has historically.
But Philly has.
Philly has. I'm just so surprised that San Francisco, where the quarterback really has to look like Joe Montana. Guy, is that the issue? Does he have to look like Joe Montana? He's not going to be Joe Montana. You're not getting the next Joe Montana. Is that the problem? Does he have to have blonde hair, blue eyes? What's the problem here? It's so silly. I
heard Joe Montana on Sirius Radio, and he was talking about, what he likes in a quarterback. And he didn't mention Trey Lance at all, but he did talk about, Brock Purdy. And he just, it starts with accuracy, just this. And it's this very kind of old school kind of way of looking at the quarterback position. And I think there are a lot of people that are still kind of stuck in what that is supposed to look like, and can't fathom what it looks like to not play exactly like that and still have to go through the ups and downs as anyone else, and then what it could look like on the other side until it does. And then it's like, that's an anomaly because Josh Allen did it, or but there's Josh Allen, there's Dak Prescott, there's a lot of these guys that have had to go through different adversities while playing the quarterback position.
Yeah, apparently they're more open-minded in Philadelphia than they are in the Bay Area. Who knew? J.R. Beckle says, what do you know about Trey Lance right now that makes you feel like he would be an upgrade over Purdy, 4-year starter versus 1 year? Sorry, JR. So I didn't mean to call you out specifically. It's possible that Purdy is a better quarterback today than Trey Lance is today, but isn't the issue like who's going to be the best quarterback in their prime? Isn't that the issue? And don't you want the guy who's going to be the best quarterback in his prime? I'm just saying.
That's what they want.
I feel like the issue,
they have to go through what it takes to get to that. Then it's like, I don't want that.
Right.
It's like anything. Like, you start a business, and I got into adult fitness. I've been training athletes, but I got into adult fitness for a month or so. I had one client.
Yeah.
And I'm going hard for that one client. And a lot of people, nah, it's not gonna work. No, it is gonna work. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna be consistent. Well, next thing you know, I kept at it. Now, I got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 clients, where for a while I only had one.
Because you did a good job with the one client, and he said to someone, hey, man, this guy's really good. And then you got 2. He told one friend, and he told one friend. That's how it works. Scott Short says, I think if Purdy balls out and goes on a run and wins us a playoff game, it would be hard to switch to Jimmy. What if we lost when Jimmy came in over a hot hand in Purdy? I think it's just interesting that all of a sudden it's a decision Kyle Shanahan has to make. And you could justify it either way. Hey, Purdy's brought us here. Got to stick with Purdy. But if they lose and the quarterback doesn't play well, he opens himself up to questions either way. Either way, I could be like, Kyle, I would have done the other thing. I would have done the other thing, Kyle. What are you thinking? I can say that.
I think he goes with Jimmy. Look, last year, Week 17, 49ers played the Houston Texans. Trey Lance goes out there and has a good game. Throws for a couple touchdowns, runs for another one that got called back, 250 yards, completed 70% of his passes, ran for another 30, 40 yards. Like, it was a good game. And Week 18, you play the Rams, clutch game, and it's like, all right, we're going. Like, Jimmy is our starting quarterback. We are going with Jimmy. So, I'd expect him to do something similar, unless you see over an extended period of time that Purdy is just so much better than Jimmy Garoppolo, which I would have a hard time thinking that we're going to see so much better version of Jimmy from Brock. Maybe he's close.
Yeah.
Maybe he's as good. I don't know. Right? Like, I have no idea. But I would have a hard time thinking he's going to be like so much better.
And I know he has a lot of experience in college, but I'm thinking at some point his lack of experience in the NFL is going to catch up to him in this season. But I don't know. Maybe not. John Mitchell says, at Grant, I still think the media is pissed Niners didn't pick the Mac Man Jones is why media don't like Trey. Maybe. I also think that there's a lot of people in the media that are in contact with or know Jimmy Garoppolo's agent and are really good at amplifying his side of the story. And no one, I don't know, Tom Comden's not talking on Trey Lance's behalf or whatever. That's how I feel. Brother Backpedal 100 says official B&A Music 88. I don't know what that means.
He's talking about me with how I defend defensive backs.
Oh. J.R. Beckle says really had to pull the race card on Trey. You can't acknowledge the elephant in the room on that one. I mean, it's obvious. I'm sorry. Steve M says Lance's deep ball opens up the offense. Look at MIA. Yeah, and that guy can't even throw hard, and he throws deep, though. Let's see if Purdy throws deep. Think he will?
I don't want to pin this. And that's what the fans are doing. It's like this Purdy versus Lance versus Jimmy thing. And to me, hey, these are 49er quarterbacks. Can this guy go out there and execute and do the things you need him to do in this pivotal moment right now down this stretch of the season? We saw last year, Trey Lance had that opportunity against the Texans, and he did what he had to do. And then you go back to Jimmy Garoppolo. They didn't have to pin one guy against another. I would say the same thing for this. But they're trying to, it's like fans of a team are trying to pin guys against each other. It's really kind of odd to me.
Mm-hmm. Matthew Sanders says, I think George Kittle resents talent. He wasn't a high draft pick. That's an interesting psychological theory. I have no idea. Corey Soto says Lance will be a star. It just might not be for the Niners. And at this point, they would deserve that fate. I'm not sure he went to the best situation. Dude, if they trade 3 first-round picks, never give him a chance, ship him off on pennies, for pennies on the dollar, and then he goes on and becomes good somewhere else, I mean, that's even worse than if he's a bust. That's way worse than if he's a bust. So I hope they don't do that. Someone have to get fired. Steve, give Lance 10 years like you gave Jimmy. Grant saying the Niners are racist is too much. J.R. Beck will take this very personally. That's all I'm going to say. I didn't say that, but hey, if the shoe fits, J.R.
Let's not say I think there is
I didn't say that.
Bias on the type of quarterback that some people want. And like you said, there was that clip going around, and the guy just said flat out, I don't like black quarterbacks. I don't know why, but I don't like black quarterbacks on somebody's on another content creator show. And I was just like, there's a lot of people that have that sentiment but won't say it out loud.
I think it's pretty clear that
act like that type of bias doesn't exist. It does, 100%. Right.
I think it's a pretty clear that a pretty significant segment of this team didn't want Trey here. And I'm not saying it's because he's black. I just didn't think they wanted another quarterback, especially another quarterback of another style, like you said. And from Trey's perspective, how do you know if it's about the style of quarterback I am or my skin color? How do I know? As a 21-year-old man, I would just feel like an outsider. And it would suck. And I'd wonder, hey, why? I don't play the position the right way, or I don't look the way. How do you know? So my heart goes out to him because it sucks. It's a shitty position that he's in. Shreddy Murphy says, Cap scarred the organization. The organization, the fans, is it Cap's fault? Maybe. Does he look too much like Cap? Is that the problem? Does he play too much like Cap? I don't know.
Guys with Kaepernick breaking records in the playoffs.
That's the last guy that
dynamic. I mean, if that scars you, I would say, hey, can I get more of that? I don't know.
He stayed healthy for like 3 years. It was amazing. Last Niners quarterback to do that. When Brock gets blowed up, the narrative will change. I hate to predict that on a person's, but
we hope we don't find that out.
Hope we don't. Steve M says Kyle owes Lance and his family an apology. I mean, someone should get in his corner.
Business is business. So, owing someone an apology, I mean, at the end of the day, the situation is kind of coming and they're very fluid. But I would say for Trey Lance, the start to his career has been less than ideal for him. But even regardless of that, the 49ers have figured out ways to still be very relevant. Going to the NFC Championship game last year without him being the guy. And then this year being one of the top teams in the NFL. So, not ideal for Trey Lance and things, but you got to figure it out. That's the business element of it. Uh-oh, my phone ringing.
Oh, it's all good. The Gold Rush 561 says Mullins won his first start, then lost his next 3. He was back up for a reason. Slow down on the Purdy train. Yeah, I mean, this could all come crashing down this week. Todd Bowles is good. This defense is good. Let's see what the Niners do. Spider-Man says, was picking Trey a mistake because he's so raw? Niners are clearly a stacked and win-now team. This is a really good question. Spider-Man says, was picking Trey a mistake because he's so raw? Niners are clearly a stacked and win-now team, not a rebuilding or even a middle-of-the-pack team that can just wait for development. I think there's something to this. You knew he was a project. Everyone said he could be Josh Allen, but it's going to take some time. And I think the Niners knew they didn't really have the time. That's why I always felt like the timelines were different. Maybe. What do you think?
I don't.
Unless they can develop him on the bench like they've been saying hey, look, Jordan Love looked good the other week. Maybe the Niners can do it. But I feel like you got to put him on the field like the Dallas Cowboys did with Aikman or the Colts did with Manning and just ride it out. But I don't know.
I don't think that he's as raw as people think. Again, it goes back to the style. There are these little things that he needs to improve on
Yes.
But it's not something that
right.
within that, he's just this person that is just not a competent quarterback.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that's the myth. And that's what Jesse Naylor just debunked. If you go watch his 11-minute video, it's showing that actually he has a very good film from the first 46 throws of his career, just like Brock. Yeah.
Or just misses, which we saw Brock Purdy throw a ball 10 yards over somebody's head. So it's not like any of these guys are without flaw, right? But again, it's more of a stylistic look thing. And him figuring out the NFL, et cetera. The biggest issue for him, again, he's only started 4 games. That's Trey's biggest issue right now.
It's like you say stylistic. It's so funny. It's such a loaded word. It's like the difference between rap and country music. It's just a stylistic difference. Yeah, but who likes those things? You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it's very intertwined. Forever Faithful says, I said it's hard. Did you go to a high school with kids that would listen to country music? I went to Bishop O'Dowd. Some kids would come with elevated trucks and subwoofers blasting country music in the morning. I was like, that's hilarious. But I thought, I don't know. Did you have kids like that in Stockton? That was a special.
Well, I went to, I live north side of Stockton, Valverde Park, but we got bused to Tokay and Lodi. So I actually went to high school in Lodi. So it's like half of our school is from, a certain demographic.
So there were Hicks out there.
Yeah.
Yes. There were some Hicks at O'Dowd because it wasn't just Oakland. It was kids from Castro Valley, San Leandro, and all around. Forever Faithful says, I said it's hard to call you short, but we going bowling. What? I said it's hard to call your shot, but we going bowling. I don't get it.
He said going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hey, with who? With Jimmy? Sean Walker. Thank you. 2 more, and then we'll get back to our show. As a Seattle fan, I feel bad for Trey. He doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve this. That's the other thing. What the hell did he do other than get drafted by the team? And just smile and do. He looks like he tries so hard to please everyone. He wants to be everyone's friend in the locker room. He wants to be nice to the media. And what does he get for it? Nothing. Fans hate him. He's trying so hard. He's gonna hit 25, 26, and then he's gonna turn heel. Just like, you know what? I heard what you guys said about me the last 5 years. I didn't forget it. He's gonna get real salty like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I hope he does.
Look at real quick Seattle, and he says he's a Seahawks fan, and they got Gino Smith, and a lot of things that people were saying about Gino heading into this year, and maybe deservedly so. But how has it turned out for them? And I think, just sometimes you just kind of got to go through that. And I was there for Gino Smith. I was with the New York Jets his rookie year. And, I remember, what that was like. I remember, social media wasn't as big then in 2013, which is crazy because it's not it was super long ago. But there was a quarterback battle. You had Mark Sanchez, who had been there, went to 2 AFC championship games. Then you draft a guy, Gino Smith, second round. And I just remember what that looked like. And I would say this. If I have one takeaway from that, a lot of the noise, the conversations that we're having right now, the opinions of the media, et cetera, were not going on in the locker room.
Okay.
We did not care. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just I got to do my job.
Coach,
these guys gotta do
pick
their
one.
jobs.
Yeah.
The narratives and all those things more times than not get pushed from the outside people. There was nothing. Everything was cool in the locker room. Everything. I ain't look at Mark Sanchez and be like, oh man. I don't like you, but I like Gino. Or I ain't get those vibes when I was going to the room and whatever. I ain't had those conversations with my teammate. What Gino Smith? What about today? But I think
what do you think? What do you think? Yeah.
Social media thing is so polarizing that George Kittle can't go to an award show without being asked about the quarterback situation. So it is a little different. But those conversations weren't going on, not to that extent when I was in the NFL.
But the Geno Smith example is interesting because I think it shows that a lot of times what a quarterback needs is a nurturing environment, and they don't always get it. I mean, nothing against what Rex Ryan was doing in New York, but it doesn't seem like Geno was given the nurturing environment that he got in Seattle. Maybe he was too
a little
young.
Immature.
Maybe he was a little immature.
Here's a good example.
Yeah. Yep.
Mike McDaniel with Tua and everything that they're saying, right? Tua. And these people in the chat, they can lie if they want to. Tua was a bust, right?
He was.
How people were viewing him.
I called him that. I thought nothing of him. I thought he was terrible. In fact, I thought he was terrible last week. But
not the most mobile guy, but can move just a little bit.
And all that's true.
A bust, right? That was the 2 year. Oh man, they're so crazy. They passed on White Jesus with Justin Herbert, right? That Justin Herbert. Oh my goodness, they passed on him. Wow. And then you see this version of Tua, and it took a a head coach, which I don't think Kyle Shanahan is this guy, but it took a head coach putting his arm around Tua. And everybody's different. You coach the kids different. You know, the way I talk to my son is I had to learn, like, okay, these guys they're a little different. They're a little more tender, right? But
like me.
McDaniel put his arm around Tua.
Yep.
And was like, I'm gonna instill and breathe.
You're way too hard on yourself. You're way too hard on yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, dude, we got this. I'm gonna and you know what, man? Look, we're gonna get through this. And man, there's so much that in this and that.
Yeah.
And I think some coaches, Kyle's not like that. I think that's probably kind of some of the difficult part when it comes to that.
And for these, especially these, like to your point, these young kids, Generation Z guys, Kyle's old school. I feel like he coaches the way maybe his dad coached, and I think these kids really respond to positivity. That's what Mike McDaniel's doing in Miami, just a whole lot of positivity, and it goes a long way, especially with kids born in 1999 and after. Crockpot, Brock, let him cook. Powerful one says, Winfield and Edwards didn't practice today. Bucks might be without their starting safeties. If so, run the ball down their throats, feed Kittle. Good call.
Especially, now when we say run the ball down their throats, are we leaning more towards McCaffrey or Jordan Mason?
Oh, that's Mason's job. That's Mason's job. He took that job. It would have been nice if they had given Mason some carries before making that trade so they could have seen what they had. But McCaffrey, I will say, he's a hell of a receiver, man. He's super good as a receiver. But as a running back, he's all right. I think he'll be better when he plays with Trey Lance because he had his best years with Cam in like a zone read offense. Now they're just lining him up in an I formation and tossing him the ball. I don't know. Not for me. Yeah. Steve M says, not pinning Croc, just Lance is more talent. Lance is a pocket passer who stretches the field. Lance is nothing like Cap or Jimmy. Just want a chip. That's true. He's way different. I mean, Kaepernick as a runner was more effective than Trey. Could get to the edge. Trey has a different mentality, I think. One QB for one season and one Super Bowl is all I want. Josh Johnson, baby. Jeremy Smith says, I think Trey is the type of guy that if given a reasonable chance, he will not disappoint. I think he is teaming the determination to do it. I thought there's a typo there, but I agree. I hope he gets a chance, man. Is he going to get a chance next year? I don't know. It might be Tom Brady here. Thank you. Couple more and then we'll get back. Double B Studio says, I think the opinions and expectations between Trey and Brock come down to what it costs to get that player. 3 first-round picks versus 1 pick. Sure.
I can see that.
True.
I can see
that's
that.
true. I can see that.
There's
pressure on one, and the other is a good story.
Yeah, the expectations are not the same. So Trey Lance go out and do what he did against Houston. Oh, it's just Houston. Brock
it's not good enough.
And play well against the Dolphins.
Miami. It's a great story.
Man.
It's a great story.
That's the future of this organization. Just
it's a great
expectations.
Story. Maybe I'll be the quarterback of the 49ers next. If Brock can do it, maybe I can do it too. First rookie to win a chip, we're going Super Bowling. This guy's into it. I love it. Double B Studio says, Jimmy the past, Brock the present, Trey is the future. Where's Josh Johnson fit in there, huh? So much disrespect. Laugh my ass off. White Jesus got me balling. Great nickname. That's hilarious. Tristan says, Croc, were you there when that guy broke Gino's jaw and basically ruined his career for years coming?
Yeah, no, that was the following year. Was Gino again? There's some immaturity there.
Who broke his jaw?
Like a linebacker or something.
All right, moving on.
He supposedly paid to get Gino to his camp, and then Gino didn't show up. So dude's like, dude, I want my money back. And then, it just kind of getting your money back. And then, okay, you got to eat these real quick.
Seems fair. It seems like a fair exchange. Anyway, so look. Where do you think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to end up next year? Let me give you some options. You got the 49ers, which I'm not sure is anyone's preference. He could go to the Raiders after looking at what Derek Carr did last night. They got to move on. And Josh McDaniels over there. Another team that's interesting, too, is the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised if Stafford retires. He's got some issues. And it seems like there's an open audition for that job. Baker Mayfield could get it. Or they've lost so many times to Jimmy Garoppolo, they might actually think he's good. Where do you think he ends up next year?
I like Carolina. Now, is that a place where he wants to go? And I say money talks, right? I didn't think that Deion Sanders would go to Colorado, and then it's like, oh, okay, you go to Colorado, money talks, right? Okay, you want to give me $30 million and $5 million for my staff? Let's go.
Is that what he got?
For my staff. He got like $6 million a year and $5 million a year for his staff.
Hey, good for him. Nice.
So it's like, yeah, going to turn that down.
Yeah.
Well, I just came from Jackson State. I was making $300,000. So, and giving half of that back so they can fix their facilities. All right, but so money definitely talks. Jimmy Garoppolo to maybe Carolina. They have nice little running back that they end up kind of falling into. He's been good since Christian McCaffrey left. You got some receivers there. I think they have some guys that they like. Add another weapon. Just drafted an offensive lineman to play left tackle. I think there's some things there, and they got some really good pieces on defense. They need to get the coaching situation right after firing Matt Rule, and get a quarterback that can keep things afloat, which is, I think, Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think that'll be a good place.
How about D'Amico and Jimmy?
Oh man, yeah, that would probably work.
Could work.
I guess D'Amico, he's out of there no matter what. So
it's looking like it. I think it'll maybe depend on what he does in the playoffs, but so far looking like he's gonna be a head coach and probably a good one. It doesn't hurt that Saleh and McDaniel are doing so well right now. That probably helps him, but he's also doing really well right now and carrying his team. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. He could take Jimmy with him. I also kind of want him to go to the Rams just because I love chaos. And if we got to watch Jimmy as like the enemy for a couple of years, it'd be so much fun to see. All Niner fans have been defending him for years have to all of a sudden root against him. I think that shit would be hilarious. So I'm hoping for that.
And then start talking about all the things that he doesn't do, right?
I want that. I want that so bad. It'd be so funny. And if the Niners started losing to Jimmy Garoppolo, that would be pretty funny too. Although I don't see that happening. Fred Warner against Jimmy. I mean, I've seen it in practice. So please, Rams. Jimmy turned a corner this year. He's not injury prone. He's a great leader. He's what you need. Way better than Baker Mayfield. I give my full support. Look at our offense. It's built for a plug-and-play quarterback. It's hard to say what system Jimmy G will fit in and how he performs because any was the same. Well, he could go to the Raiders. They're running. I mean, they got McDaniels over there.
They were different though. I think New England was more of a shotgun, spread out, one back, throw a bunch to the back, a lot of short things. Kyle's is more based on under center, being able to turn your back to a defense, timing, and precision, right? And it's very precision based in this offense, more so than some of the other offenses where you have to be able to be functionally accurate, but not as precise with the timing where it's like back foot hits the ground, ball's got to be out. Some offenses aren't built on that. So they are different, I think, from that standpoint. That's not what New England was for a lot of years. So different. I think you have that's a good picture of two different style offenses that Jimmy has been in. Also
with Kyle, if you want a guy under center, turning his back to the defense, running play action, he has to hold the ball longer. I mean, he has to literally look away from the pass rush. I think maybe there are reasons why the Niners have gone through 6 quarterbacks, but it's not all Kyle. I'm sure there's a lot of factors. In fact, I want to ask you about that right now. So we talk about like the Niners, they need to upgrade their quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, or do they need a real head coach to ever win a Super Bowl? Well, what about the offensive line? I mean, it punches above its weight sometimes. It's really well coached, and they have a great left tackle, but I mean, just big picture, the last 6 years, the Niners have gone through 6 quarterbacks and 10 running backs. That's a lot of injuries, people that these guys are supposed to be blocking. And when the Niners have lost at the end of seasons where they've been good, I mean, the offensive line has fallen apart in the fourth quarter. Do you think this offensive line is really Super Bowl caliber?
It's crazy. We talked about this on Locked On 49ers last night. And I think all offensive lines suck. Like, they are.
That's what Chris Forster said yesterday, too. Yes.
You go around the league, the offensive lines are the most vulnerable position on pretty much every team. Every team is trying to figure out how to get better.
Look at Tampa.
Probably like cornerback, right? Yeah. Cornerbacks are typically the most vulnerable position on every team, and every team is trying to figure out how to be better at cornerback. It's just so hard. So I think that the 49ers offensive line is very competent. I think I don't think they are among the bottom 15 in the NFL. I think the offensive line is good enough to win. I think they might call for the quarterback to be able to make a play or two that can't be accounted for. And I think that's some of the things that Jimmy had struggled with. I feel like he's got a little better with that this year. There were a few plays where I'm like, okay, Jimmy, okay, let's go. And I think if he makes those type of plays in the playoffs, maybe 49ers have a couple of Super Bowl wins. But I'd say overall, yes, I think this is an offensive line that is good enough to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. In comparison to some of the other offensive lines I look at, I'd say the biggest issue I've seen is, and this might be more Kyle Shanahan than actually the offensive line, I think there have been probably a few too many free runners at quarterbacks than I would like to see. And I mean, you can go back to Carolina, right? There was Carolina game. Jimmy had a couple free runners, right? I mean, threw the ball downfield, and everybody, oh man, great job, you're under pressure. But my thing is, why are there so many free runners? And I think.
And then last week, Purdy, his solution was he like made a few miss and then hit that one throw while taking a shot. Like that's again not sustainable long term.
Right.
What's going on?
And I think Kyle's answer to that would be, well, regardless of what a team is doing against us, all the answers are in the play call. So if there is, a free runner, then there's a void somewhere else, and it's on my quarterback to make sure that he understands where to go and hit that guy. So I think that has a lot to do with maybe the free runners as opposed to other teams that you see chip 49er players. All right, where's Nick Bosa at? He's right there. Okay, we might struggle with him. Let's motion our guy to the other side of the quarterback, motion him down next to Nick Bosa. Then we're going to chip Nick Bosa before he goes out. Before that player goes out for a route. So I think
the problem though on Jimmy's injury, it was a free runner. He broke his foot, and what Kyle said was, they got the free runner and they covered both of our hot routes. So what really Jimmy needed to do there was go down. And I appreciate that Jimmy tried to fight for extra yards because he was going to get knocked out of field goal range. The other thing is, I asked Forster yesterday, the offensive line coach. I said, scoring is down in the league because he likes answering big picture questions. He's hella smart. Scoring is down league-wide for the second year in a row. Why do you think that is? And he was like, I haven't really thought about that. I didn't know that. But my first thought is, those D linemen are really good. And it's like every game I'm feeling good, and then I get out in the tunnel, I look at the other D linemen, I'm like, crap, like how are we going to block these guys? And that, to me, I think is true. Every year the disparity between offensive line and defensive line gets big. I mean, though you got like 300-pound dudes with like 10% body fat that run 4.8s. I mean, it's crazy. And the offensive linemen seem like
I've seen them.
And then the offensive linemen seem the same every year. It's like, so if that's the case, I feel like the Niners are almost like, you know what? Let's not be over invested in offensive linemen. Let's just invest in D linemen because those guys are way better, and we'll do what we can with Chris Forster and the guys we got. And I get it, but I still feel like, man, you got to try a little bit harder to find some special offensive linemen because you got one at left tackle. Maybe Banks is a second one. Maybe. But, dude, McGlinchey can't be good enough. Brendel can't be good enough for you. You got to do better. You got to be able to do better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier to upgrade McGlinchey than it is to upgrade Jimmy, frankly. Right. All right. Take a couple more questions, then we'll break down this upcoming game. Josh Wyatt says Jimmy will be back for the wild card regardless of his body because his next contract depends on it. How do you protect him from himself here? Well, there's one other theory that if he comes back too early, he could break it again, and then he wouldn't be healthy for free agency and cost himself a lot of money. So, not sure if he wants to push it. Yeah. Not sure if he wants to push it. He'll have to. Maybe it behooves him to like look healthy. Be like, hey, I'm on the sideline. I'm wearing a hat and a jersey, but I can't actually play. Sydney, thank you. Flave, been waiting. Would love to see Jimmy go to the Lions. They are going to be good soon thanks to the Stafford trade. Also can get out of Goff's contract this year. Is Jimmy better than Goff?
Well, that's what I was going to. I mean.
Is that an upgrade? I mean, like.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing I wouldn't do that.
They already have Jimmy Garoppolo. They have not so handsome Jimmy. Already have him. All right, last topic.
Now his girl, what I'm saying, she kind of cool, so she might think different. Goff's girl.
I haven't seen his girl. I take it back. Sorry.
I'm saying
I take it back. All right, fair enough. The Niners are playing the Bucs this weekend. Two really good defenses. Well, one great defense, one good defense, one all-time great quarterback, and Brock Purdy. How you see this one? What intrigues you about this matchup, and how do you see it playing out?
I'd say the thing that intrigues me off bat is the Bucs offense. They're not good. And they have these receivers who I'm not sure. And again, they won a Super Bowl with these guys for sure. But I think as far as what's consistent, they are a lot different than what Tom Brady is used to having. And then when you kind of combine that with their offensive line struggles, you talk about 49ers offensive line, Tampa Bay's offensive line is worse. And
way worse.
They are bad.
Their
so
left tackle?
Quarterback that typically wants to get the ball in his hands right now. He likes to play with timing and rhythm. I remember when I was with the Jets and we were in that AFC East, we were going over film and stuff, and they're talking about Tom Brady, and it's like, hey, the longer in the downs, the worse he plays. He wants to get the ball in his hands right now, right? So knowing that, but then you got these guys that it takes them a little bit longer, right? Julio Jones, he ain't prime Julio Jones. Mike Evans, guys they're effective, but it's not.
They're not open right
Mike
now
Evans.
the way Edelman was, the way Welker was,
or Godwin.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, but he's still not that right now. So it's like, okay, do we depend on Scotty Miller to be that?
I like Scotty Miller,
they have
but
thrown a lot more to the running back positions, but I think those are things that definitely work more so in the 49ers' favor. Going up against an offensive line that's not good, going up against a receiver core who's not really more as dynamic, right, or difficult to cover, like maybe Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and those type of guys. So I think this is definitely a favorable matchup for the 49ers. So now I take it to the 49ers offense, which is just don't turn the ball over. You got a young guy. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at him. I think the Miami Dolphins try to do that. I think Brock Purdy handled it extremely well. Now, do it again. Don't do that weird thing he did when he rolled out right, then threw the ball across the field to Brandon Ayuk. And don't do that, okay? Play within the context of the offense. Make a play here and there. If it's not there, throw it away. Just don't turn the ball over. And I think the 49ers win.
Yeah, the thing that concerns me about the Niners, you brought it up in the last segment talking about the free rushers. Like, Kyle has to find a solution to that. And I don't want to hear that the solution is throw it down the middle to George Kittle while taking a hit in the face. Like, that's not sustainable. He's not that big. And even if he were, it's not sustainable. There needs to be quick outlet, hot routes that he can hit without taking hits. And because look, Todd Bowles is great. He's looking at what the Dolphins did, and he's like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can get free rushers. Let's do it early. Let's press the issue, and let's see if Kyle's found the answers, and let's see if this kid's ready. And maybe they have, but I have a feeling Todd Bowles is going to find out pretty damn fast.
That's what I would do.
That's how
I would
it works.
go in there. That would be my plan. We're going to throw the sink at him, and if he handles that well, then okay, we'll adjust.
Back off.
To like, all right, these are things we're going to do. And maybe we're going to make him now. We're going to rush forward, which they have a solid front line. They got Vita Vea. Hopefully the 49ers can run into that. That's a big guy up the middle. But all right, then we could drop back and play coverage and make him be more precise. Now, let's see if he does that well. And if he does, awesome. Okay, it's going to be a dogfight. But if I'm them, I definitely would try to see, because you don't know, right? Nobody really knows, how he can handle, certain things. And the 49ers trying to figure that out. Tampa Bay and Seahawks, who will be the 49ers opponent next Thursday, they're trying to figure it out. Everybody trying to figure it out. So I think that'd be very interesting to see.
Speaking of Vita Vea, it seems like he's the kind of D lineman that sort of takes over the Niners O-line in the fourth quarter of big games. Chris Jones, Aaron Donald. Now, the Niners had success against Aaron Donald, but you know what I mean? Like, in those meltdowns in the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl, it was a lot of not being able to block that one dominant D tackle who's destroying you. And you had him the rest of the season, but you can't, you're a little tired, and all of a sudden you're getting outclassed. Vita Vea is damn good. So I'd like to see how the Niners handle him. And I think Chris Forster'd like to see it too. He's so honest. Do you watch his press conferences?
Nah.
They're interesting. I recommend them. They're good. D'Amico's are good too, but Chris Forster is he's like an older Mike McDaniel. He'll just go, and you'll be like, oh, damn, I didn't know that. Anyway, Niners secondary or TB secondary, who wins the battle?
49ers secondary today.
Yeah. A lot of injuries in Tampa.
I don't know how good their secondary is. I mean, they got some names back there. They got some guys that I like, for sure.
Jamel Dean?
I don't know. Now, again, I see every snap of the 49ers guys. I don't see every snap of Tampa Bay secondary. I have watched them over the years, so I have like this 16-game sample size over 3 years of how I view them, and I think 24, nice. Dean can be had. I like the son of the corner, Winfield Jr. I think he's a playmaker, and we'll see who plays, but yeah.
Well, if they don't play, that's also good for the Niners. The other thing is Nick Bosa. Don't know if he's going to play. Hasn't practiced yet. We'll see if he practices today. Today's a walkthrough. So if he can't practice for a walkthrough, that's a bad sign. I mean, the thing with Bosa is they're calling it hamstring irritation, which essentially is not information. Is it a hamstring pull? We don't know. They went super vague, so it could be nothing. It could be something. We'll find out. Do you think they can win without him?
I think it'll be a little difficult. You look at last game. The 49ers defensive line is good. when they're all clicking. I'd say they are carried more times than not by Nick Bosa. Yeah. And if you take away the guy that takes so much attention, right? Like they again, we talk about the chipping and everything that they do, the attention that offenses pay to him, and now they can just play a little bit more freely because there is no Nick Bosa. I think that would be a huge strain on the 49ers defense. So you need Bosa, especially against Tom Brady.
Yeah, I just don't see how the Bucs offense can function if Bosa's on the field. Like, their only healthy starting offensive lineman is Donovan Smith, who sucks. Sorry, Donovan. I mean, you can't block Nick Bosa. You probably give up 2 sacks and 2 holding penalties against Bosa. I mean, anytime the Bucs would have to throw, I'd be like, well, here comes Bosa. I mean, this isn't going to work. So without him, it seems like it's more of an even matchup. And I don't know. I kind of expect him to play. But again, I have no idea the nature of the injury. The Niners aren't really telling. We'll find out, I guess. What do you expect? Think he plays?
It feels like he's playing.
Feels like he's going to play, right?
It feels like he's going to play.
All right, that's the end of the show. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for being here, Croc. Anything you want to tell the people about what you got going on?
Man, Locked On 49ers, and myself, my co-host Brian Peacock, come at you 5 days a week. And, man, shout out to all the faithful that already listened to it. We are the #1 show on the network, and that's been the case for, like, pretty much the past couple years where, I mean, there's a lot of shows on that network, and we are consistently at the top. So shout out to the 49 faithful, man, big-time fan base. They draw, big numbers for us, especially for a daily podcast, for us to get as many listens as we do. I think we're over 4 or 5 million this year, 5 million or something like that. So
beautiful.
Yeah. So
beautiful.
Shout out to the faithful.
Yeah.
That's just the audio. That's not even including YouTube. So I think that would add like another million or something like that. So shout out to everybody that listens to this.
Yeah. You got to love that. There's a huge audience on YouTube too. I'm about to hit 80 million. Love this place. 80 million, baby. The powerful one says, what you need to remember with Bosa and him not practicing is that they have to play Thursday Night Football next week in Seattle. Short week. Don't want to burn out your guys in practice. Good idea. Good idea. Be careful with them. Cap protests scared the organization. Scarred, maybe.
Scarred, yeah.
Yeah, I can't read. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back this afternoon with a Bucs content creator to find out a little bit more about Tampa. See you guys.